have to get it from you, and I'll grab it off the account later. Thanks. Okay. All right, great. Anybody still need a moment to get in?
I admitted everyone so far.
Oh, okay. I meant into the swap meet, but that's okay. We'll start going. Okay. All right. So some of the things that Caroline and I, had been talking about when we first got on here are just some of the different ways that we are still reaching our population. So just some of the special services and programming that you're offering. If anybody's doing, like Caroline is doing live story time hours, I'm doing daily recorded read alouds that I add to my website. If you're doing your own reference center, there's a lot of us that have been using the Unlock Student Potential website. Oh, I realized I should have put the link in there, which is staffed 4 hours a day with public and school librarians. Caroline at that point said, oh, I'd love to participate in that chat line. How do you do that? Anybody making connections with the public library? These were just some of the ideas that, we brainstormed. Anybody want to speak to any of this? What is it that you're doing? You can unmute yourself. Caroline, if you can call by name, if you see somebody waving, I can't see the participants.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of the live storytime hours, one thing that I did last week with pre-K and K was I did bedtime stories, and we all put on our PJs and had our stuffed animals and got all cozy, and then I shared 2 stories with them, and it seemed to go over pretty well. So that was something fun to do and change it up a little bit.
And did you get good participation?
2 out of the 3 classes I did. One class I didn't get great participation, but the other 2 classes I had really good participation.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
So that was fun.
Yeah. And if you want, you can go right in there and add that next to here. This is editable for everybody.
After our last meeting, I've been Zooming into teachers' classes at the beginning.
Nice.
And reading aloud, and kindergarten has loved it and has wanted me back. First grade was half and half, so I did my own Zoom for the 2 classes the teachers weren't doing live. And I'm stopping at second grade because 2 teachers pushed back and said, the kids are just too busy. They don't have time for a story.
Okay.
So I'm,
Yeah. Well, bloom where you're planted. So, okay. That's great. Actually, Morris County had a little mini swap like this, and I had not been familiar with Flipgrid. And so that was great. I've gotten some great responses back from my students using Flipgrid. So Sue had presented on that.
I tried Loom for the first time, and I really loved it. It was really easy, and I could create a PowerPoint and then actually talk through it. Your pictures like it down in the bottom corner. And
Okay.
I did a whole thing on food art, and the kids loved it. So it was really a great way to get some more kids to actually sign up and come to the library during this time. So
that's so great. Okay.
Yeah, that was a fun thing. And I started Zoom with the classroom teachers too. That works pretty well.
Tom, you should put that in the slides later too.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting into type in there, but I'll figure that out. But the Loom has a really easy, like 3-minute tutorial.
Let me just check.
And then you're up.
I love it, and I love that your face can be on it of all different sizes.
Yeah.
So cool.
And you can even like edit out very quickly. If you made a mistake, you can take out that little piece. So.
Okay, I'm hoping this is right. I mean, I made this so that, is anybody else been having any trouble trying to get into edit?
No. I can edit.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
great.
edit too.
Okay, all right. So Tom, if you can't do it right now while we're presenting,
Okay.
Please, make sure you can get in there later and add that. Yeah, Joyce has a whole list of different tools and programs that she'll share with us, and that was one, and I hadn't heard about it until Joyce said it about 10 minutes ago, and so thanks for sharing that one.
One of the new tools that I started using, and I know it's been around forever, but I just didn't really have a need before, is Pear Deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put the video of my story. I liked it because it was very self-contained. I'd put the video on one side and then, whatever interactive piece I had underneath it. And it was good because a lot of my students are having trouble with their different devices and stuff, and having to take a picture and having parents upload it. And, you know, all the different pieces. I like that it was very self-contained
Okay.
and just all right there for them. They could draw on it.
Huh. I've heard that one for a while, but that too I've also never used. Okay.
I
Right.
use Pear Deck a little bit as well. Pear Deck is, Shannon McClintock Miller has a bunch of stuff on her blog about, you know, just already done for you, and you can just copy and reuse as needed. And there's an end of the year one that's really nice that I just discovered this morning. And it has like, what was your favorite book of the year? What was your favorite memory of the year? And all the students can share information about that on Pear Deck. So I'll probably add that too.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Anybody doing something different, like having, I'm doing drop-ins for students if they need support. We have little half-hour sessions throughout the week for all my grade levels. It's not so much support as just time for them to chat and hang out, but it's really great to see their faces. Anybody else?
I was able to participate. I can't take any credit for this since I'm still transitioning to elementary, but I was lucky enough to participate in a literacy event that my new elementary school ran, where it was this compilation of really short, like 10 to 15 minute little workshops of everything related to literacy. And one of the ones I loved was this musical literacy, where kids were exposed to different pieces of music and they got to draw or write their responses and share with whoever else was in that Zoom room. We did we did a storyline online where we picked a story that related to social and emotional learning, and then had the kids talk about some of their successes and frustrations during remote learning. So gave them a little bit of a voice, but through story too. So if, you know, they weren't exactly brave enough to be that introspective, they could relate it to the story. So, you know, like really short, really impactful, and easy to put together.
That sounds so cute. Yeah. I love that idea. I love that musical literacy. Okay. Anybody making any public library connections in your community? Okay. I just reached out this week to say, what are you doing for summer reading? And can I be like a guest or anything like that to stay connected to the kids? And I don't know that they know exactly what their summer reading program is going to look like, but they at least were receptive to the idea of sharing.
It took me a minute to get to my mute button. I've actually reached out to my librarian as well this week, and they're putting together a video to sort of connect to the students so that we can get them started with summer reading. And we have a program working with the public librarians. That's actually what my presentation was for NJASL in the fall, is about collaboration and making sure that the students take part in things like summer reading. So we bring the librarians in, the public librarians, to talk about how to access ebooks. They get hooked up with library cards, and the students can now, as a result of that, access these books all summer. So it's going to be a recap of how to use the library cards during the summer to access books and all the special virtual events that they'll be having in the summer.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, so we'll be able to
idea.
post that on our Google Classroom, and it'll be about 15-20 minutes long. And they're used to having that in person every year. This year it'll just be virtual.
Yeah, that's a good idea though. That's a nice idea.
Yeah.
To have them connected that way.
Yeah, I like the idea of refreshing how to get a library card during this time, so you can bring kids in. Our school, that we were ready to launch the One School, One Book initiative, and of course it collapsed because of, you know, the books arrived and then schools all closed. So we decided to go ahead with it anyway and sort of do like actually now it's a one district, one story time. And so we went to different community members, like the public librarians, the mayor, we have a police youth officer, and we're all reading different parts of the book. So it's actually kind of cool. It brought the community kind of together. So I'm happy we went ahead. I'm hoping it's working. So we're about halfway through.
Jill, somebody wants the link for the slides.
Oh, sure. Well, it's in the very, very top of the chat. Just so you know, if you scrolled all the way up to the chat, it's a bit.ly link, but it's right here.
What book are you doing?
We're doing the one and only Ivan. 'Cause it's
That's
kind
what I
of a-
wanted to.
Yeah, it's kind of a stretch because once we became one district, we have to go pre-K to 8th grade. So it's a bit of a stretch. I'm a little bit nervous for the younger readers, but so far, no complaints.
No, I'm sure not. And I keep thinking, because then One and Only Bob just came out.
Yeah, it was a great time because we had that whole promo just when we started. It was awesome. So,
Oh, that's so
and then we
great.
actually wrote to the author and we got permission to do the videos. So we I don't know how legal that is with, the publisher, but we felt we were kind of covered. She was like, oh, yeah, just make sure you take it down at the end of the program.
But couldn't you also read the picture book of the Ivan?
Yes,
It's not
the
the
little
same.
ones?
we have that as a link.
It's not the same. Yeah, the picture book is a nonfiction story of his true life. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
of
but
his
I'm
true
saying
life.
for the little ones to have something so they could relate to it, since you said it's pre-K all the way through.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have that as one of our other activities. I just was nervous of them listening to. There's a couple chapters that
Well, Tom, we did the One and Only Ivan this year as well, and actually starting next week, I'm going to be sharing the One and Only Bob with the kids. But we did it, and I have a calendar where we kind of marked which pages were sensitive to give families a heads up. I don't know if that would be helpful to you, but reach out to me if you want anything. Let me know because I have all our materials and stuff.
Okay.
So if there's anything I can do to help you.
I can't see, but is that you, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I recognize your voice. I don't see your face on my screen, but I knew that was.
It's Lisa Straubinger.
Okay. Thank you. I'm totally reaching out to you for that. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also went on the Common Sense and took their little parent warning and made sure that went out to the younger grade parents just so they could make the decision on their own. So
that's a great idea too. Okay. Thank you. Oh my gosh, so fun. Okay. All right. So professional development. So we had started to think about doing more online development throughout the end of the year when people are so busy and they can't get out. And then, now nobody can go anywhere. So we started these swap meets, and like I said, we're doing the other grade levels for the rest of the week, but we wanted to know what other best resources you found for your self-guided PD. Are you planning to attend other things like the SLJ day is next Wednesday, right? And ALA is now rather inexpensive because it's all virtual. And then what can NJASL provide for you, even throughout the summer? So I just wanted to hear some feedback from you about this. Our PD coordinators are both here, our two co-chairs, Donna and Caroline. So we'd love to hear your ideas of what you need. Any thoughts? Everybody's good. Anybody else doing anything else? I've done a couple simple K-12 Google Classrooms to just learn a few tips and tricks about that, which has been good. Like I said, our county group did some.
I did a Screencastify PD where you can earn a badge. It's very simple. You just go to their website. It'll show you how to do a Screencastify and the little tips and tricks, and it does go right, into your drive. So it's very easy and it's easy to share. You can share it right to Google Classroom. So I really liked that, and you earn a badge.
Now, did you do that for your teachers or your students?
I did the Screencastify PD for me, but I've made Screencastifies for read alouds. I show the book as in the big part of the frame, and then I'm in the corner reading aloud. So
now I've had it tap out at 5 minutes. Is there a different membership to let that go longer?
They just opened it up for teachers where it's going longer, because I did a 20-minute video without a problem.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh,
okay,
how did you do that? Because I've been using it, but it's been tapping out at 5 minutes. It makes me nervous.
Yeah. So with your teacher,
how do you extend it?
Somehow with my teacher account the other day,
just go to
let me go on.
Oh, okay.
Go to their help and just ask them, and they'll make your account an educator account, and you'll have unlimited time. And it's for a limited time. They're only doing that, I think, until the end of August, or they'll probably even extend it. I think they even says until, at first they said June 30th, and then they said, we'll extend it as needed. So however long this lasts, they're in it for us. So that's a wonderful thing.
Is that you, Nancy?
Yes, that's me, Nancy.
Hey. I didn't see you before we went to the screen. Thanks for being here. Okay, and you know what? You don't have to decide this minute what you need. Certainly, like I said, this is something that you can keep adding to as we go. So put something in here, add it in the last slides. Let us know though, what you're looking for from us, what we can do. Even if it's just more of these, just bouncing ideas from one another.
I know Jessica is on here. I know Mackin has offered up a couple helpful resource webinars. So that's another place to reach out to if anybody's looking.
That is great. Do you want to speak to that, Jess? Welcome.
Yeah, hi everybody. So one of the things that is coming for the summer is we're calling it summer camp. And I know the entire month of June is dedicated just to libraries. And so there's going to be like a town hall, there's going to be small groups, just different ways, something every week for the month. I think the month of July is going to be on engaging digital literacy. And I think the month of August is about how to prepare for the fall, whatever that looks like, taking into account things like social emotional learning, the trauma that students probably have been dealing with, and just how do you prepare for, whatever might come. So that is, that's coming. I think we're actually supposed to announce like the dates and times and everything next week, right after Memorial Day. So yeah, we give you professional development. It's all free. Please join and take advantage of that. And we're actually doing a webinar with SLJ tomorrow at 2, kind of like for librarians, just on dealing with all of this and best practices, like kind of from around the country.
Thank you so much. That's excellent. Oh, good. Oh, thanks. And thanks for joining us. But again, so add other things here if you want to share later what you plan to attend, or what we as your organization can do for you. Okay. We were going to just share a couple of little personal experiences, because we want to always encourage you to lift your voices, to try and be heard. But we do recognize the frustrations in trying to do that. Caroline was going to give you a little bit of her career history. Pop in there, Caroline.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, because it relates to what I'm thinking about today. I was a librarian in Newark Public Schools for 8 years, and I had tenure, and then I got riffed. Basically, I went to the time clock. On the last day of school, I had a smile from ear to ear because I was so happy. I had saved my escrow money. I was going to take a nice long vacation. I didn't have any financial problems. And then I went to the time clock to just exit. And then the principal called me into her office and said, "Don't you know you've been terminated?" So I was dumbfounded. And then I got a job 2 weeks later, and I went to Irvington, and I was there for 3 years. And then Newark called me back. I was probably the only librarian who had come back from that riff. So right now, I'm having dreams about the time clock again and about being riffed. So I'm doing everything in my power to brand myself. So thank you. I didn't want to sound negative, but it's something I'm thinking about right now, because I'm always volunteering. My supervisor said do live WebExes. So I'm doing the live WebExes. I'm doing the library story time. Then my immediate supervisor said to, every week we have a special subject teachers meeting. He asked me to explore different tech tools. So that's what I've been doing. So within 5 minutes of him sending me an email, I respond back that I will explore Flipgrid or Nearpod, and then I use it with my students. So I would like to go in this week with a new application and try to impress them. But I'm just being very proactive and trying to brand myself. So I'm looking for this, I'm coming to this session. I'd like to find out more ideas too. Any question?
You, Caroline. Yeah, thanks.
My question is, anyone who's had success with getting greater student engagement during this distance learning, I would love to hear it. My response from them has been very low, and I am absolutely understanding to the circumstance, but I'm constantly looking for, like, what can I do to help them be more engaged with our assignments?
I think you are not alone, because Jill and I had the same question.
This is Lois Myers. I wanted to speak to that. I think being a part of the teacher's Google Classroom is important. I think attaching to their classes is very important for exposure. And it also helps having the teacher on your side.
Yeah.
Especially for those older ones, you know? Depending on the relationship the teacher has with them is important too, because she can, you know, make sure they're doing your stuff.
That's really good.
Having teacher support is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, this is not Momoashi. I'm using my daughter's. That's why I see a different name. Also, if you can, like what Lois was saying, if you could also piggyback on the class dojos, and also if you would do often, if you need information, if you do the universal screen for the universal email for students' names and things like that, maybe the administrator or another teacher, they may have a closer relationship with that student, so you could get more information. That's what I've been doing, and it's been working. Of course, some students, you may not even hear from them, but eventually someone will get back to you and let you know if they're ill or something like that. But if you do the all call to the universal email of your school, usually someone, they may know a family member, or they may know the child's you know, parent, and they can give you more insight as to how to reach them. But the teacher is key when you piggyback on the class dojo or the screencasting or whatever, because the homeroom teachers, especially with the younger ones, the older ones, it is what it is, but with the younger ones, the parents still are, you know, vigilant, and everything's accurate. So if you can have the email addresses and the phone numbers, and the parents really will make sure that the kids, you know, are doing what they're supposed to. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually wanted to. Hi, everyone. My name's Margaret. How are you? Can you all hear me? Hi.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Margaret. Oh, thank you. So I wanted to speak to, you know, as Namomo mentioned, the older kids, it's difficult, and I have the older kids. I have, and I know this is primarily for elementary, but maybe you can tweak this. But for me, so I have 7 through 12, and so I've created this online book club. I wanted to speak to the student engagement portion. We have been reading, obviously this is too sophisticated for elementary, but The Things They Carry by Tim O'Brien. And so what I did was since everybody didn't have a book, I copied, you know, excerpts from it, put it on Google Slides, and then, you know, did a WebEx about it. Everybody was able to read. And then after that, we did prompts concerning the things they carry, you know, the invisible items as well as the tangible items that they carry that they never even realized they carried. And then afterwards, everybody was doing, the prompt was to have somebody write a song or a poem talking about the things, the inanimate things, as well as the physical things that they carried. And so the fact that students were able to do something that regarded a talent, you know, I sang, all right, on there, and you know, and I did spoken word as well. And so, you know, it's something I wanted to keep it light and enjoyable, and the kids were, you know, commenting on each other's work and encouraging. And so, you know, that is what I've been doing for my student engagement piece, and it's worked very well for me.
That's great, thank you. I have to say too, when I did my poetry flip grid, I think the kids knowing that they had an opportunity, whether they read somebody else's poem or their own, yeah, I feel like giving them a literal voice. Definitely, they wanted to be heard, and then they loved hearing each other's. Yeah, I got good response with that.
I did the same for 3rd grade. Jill and I think we did the exact same thing, but my favorite one, I think I've read this one to you, Jill, was roses are red, violets are blue. I miss school and miss you too.
Yeah.
We hung up. I was like, okay.
That's beautiful.
But I'm getting about 5 kids per homeroom who are doing anything.
Yeah.
And they're just too busy with regular work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That too, I have to say, I got greater engagement when I modified their response to me in like either do this activity or write to me in the comments in Google Classroom. Our platform's Google Classroom. And I did get more engagement that way, because I think sometimes for my young learners, they either couldn't drag and drop, or they were on an iPad and they couldn't manipulate what we had, and the parents would try and print it or take a screenshot. And when I just said, just tell me what's happening, or tell me how you felt about this, or you interpreted it, or your response to it, I got a lot more of that too. Just a real quick comment, which at least let me know that they were engaged in some way.
This is Vanessa. I am a school librarian in Newark Public Schools, Hawkins Street School. I do find that the students respond more when they have to be more creative. Last week, my assignment was I read a few poems about reading, about books. I videotaped myself doing that, and I shared that. Their assignment was to find a poem about reading or create a poem about reading. And I got a lot more responses than I thought I would get. I did it for 3rd grade all the way up to 8th grade. And I got about 20 responses of original poems about reading and about books. And I gave the students the opportunity to do it in their native language. So I got some Spanish, some Portuguese submissions. So my plan is to put them all in a little video and share it with the school, like a little poetry kind of slam. So the kids, they responded well to that, a lot more than I thought they would. So creating their own original pieces was a good one for them.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to share on these? I was just going to share a frustration, unfortunately, about trying to lift my voice and not being heard by administration. And so I think for right now, I'm just going to shift it and make sure my building hears me. So my staff and my students and my teachers, and then maybe from there, like get a groundswell and move it on. But, going from top down, I think there's a lot of activity already at the top, and they have their own ideas. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll make sure I'm just keeping those really strong connections in my building. So I didn't know if anybody else wanted to share on that.
For me, I found that like being flexible in the way I deliver my lessons is key. I started off using just emailing every parent directly the lesson. And they said that the parents were getting too many emails. So we all moved towards Google Classroom, but then I lost half of my parents that way. And so I had to manually add in 600 emails into Google Classroom so that I knew that those parents had access to Google Classroom. And then those numbers improved. And another thing I was able to work on is with the principal, making sure that he made it clear to classroom teachers that they were to remind the students of what specials they were having on which days, and making sure they had a hyperlink to that person's Google Classroom embedded into their lesson. My numbers shot up with that. Wow. I also, with every lesson, I embed a Google form, and the students are to tell me which lessons they enjoyed the most, and they can give me feedback about what they like, what they dislike, what they're working on. And that is my assessment piece for the day. It's really super easy. I actually put into the Google slideshow an example of what my choice board looks like for the week and what that Google form might look like for them. So feel free to take a look at that and use that to model lessons after. It took me a while to get there. My first choice board did not look like that. That is that's inspired by, again, I live on her blog, but Shannon McClintock Miller, she does a lot of good work. And also, one of the things I find that is so good that came out of this epidemic, if anything anybody could say that, is that we've now got so much access to free resources that were, out of the range of a lot of our budgets. And maybe through the use of these resources and learning how it impacts student learning, maybe teachers will ask more and administrators will understand the effectiveness of these online resources, and maybe we'll have access to them in the future. They're needed. If you're gonna hand students a computer, you have to give them appropriate resources at their level. So things like Pebble Go, Epic, all of these virtual resources. Actually, I should share too, I created a virtual online library of all the resources and hyperlinks to all the free resources that have come out of this. It might not be useful after this, but for the next few months, it's a really great tool. Mac in Books and Follett interactive books, all of the things that we get in our emails, I basically copy it and I paste it and put it in my virtual library. And so it's like a one-stop shop. So the expectation is that they're doing my library lesson and then they're visiting the virtual library and they're choosing a book to read. And that's part of the lesson too. And so, it's business as usual in my library. I have about 350 students, and I would say I get about a response from about 275 a week.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Special ed was hard. They use things like, they use different modalities. Google Classroom is not gonna work for a student with autism. They're using platforms like Seesaw. And so by creating this choice board, I basically take the link, I email it directly to the classroom teachers, and they can post it on their Seesaw. And they're in charge of figuring out if the students did it or not. So they get the feedback to me. And so it works a little differently for different populations, but I try to simplify it and making it just one choice board for the whole school, but trying to put a variety of activities on there that could speak to all different levels. I don't tell them what they can do. I don't tell them what's on level for them. In library, we tend to stay away from that anyway. It's not a thing for us. Like if you want to read Pete the Cat and you're not necessarily a Pete the Cat person, this is fine. Maybe you learn a social emotional skill. Maybe it's not necessarily vocabulary that you're learning that day. So I do like a lot of really good escape rooms and things that are fun. The students look forward to it. I had some guy who was reading Dr. Seuss with Dr. Dre rap.
Oh my gosh, he's so great, isn't he?
Yeah. So I got so many emails after that from parents and students. This is awesome, more. I did escape room for May the 4th be with you day. I did a whole bunch of Star Wars themed stuff and they loved it. So I'm getting a lot of good feedback from the students. And so that's a good thing that's coming out of this,
That is great. And please forgive me because I cannot see. Who is this speaking? These are so
Taisha Gato Barrera.
Sure. Okay, no, I mean, I know, now that you say your name, I know who you are. I can see you in my head, but I didn't know it was speaking.
Taisha Gato Barrera. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, right?
All right, thank you. Anybody else before we move on to the next slide?
I've got a couple of quick things. My principal is absolutely wonderful. And at the beginning of the year, she tasked me with starting a TV show. And then once we went into quarantine, she's like, well, we got to continue that TV show somehow. And I'm like, I don't have the kids. How am I going to do it? So it has kind of befallen on me to create the show. And right now it's daily. There's a morning show. The kids do send me videos, and which is a great way to keep them engaged. And then on Friday, there's supposed to be an afternoon show. I'm going to stop that because we're at the point now where the kids start really slowing down with sending me content. But you know, we keep challenging them. We're about to do like a 5th grade talent show. We're gonna do like a graduation for the 5th grade where they, you know, each homeroom has like a flying up ceremony, that sort of thing. You know, having a daily show and having that platform to talk to them, it's really been amazing. I've only get like 12 responses per grade per day, but I know they're actually watching it. If I Zoom with a kid because they're having trouble, I'll be like, "Are you watching SBTV?" And they're like, "Oh, every day." You know, and even though they didn't respond to me in the comments, you know, they're apparently really looking forward to it. And I just, you know, when I talk to parents and I live and work in the same community, you know, I get really good responses from it. So the TV show is definitely a big hit with keeping them engaged and keeping connected. The second thing that I did was I took home the 3D printer, and while I feel guilty that I'm not printing PPE or anything, yeah, I just I don't feel like my printer's that I keep running into problems with it, and I'm like I just don't want to go there. I invited kids to design. It was a great way. It's a good virtual lesson to get them into Tinkercad, and then I had them send it to PolarCloud, which is my typing software. But then I hooked it up to Zoom, and they are able to watch the 3D printer print the projects. So that is hysterical because I'm muted, but like all of a sudden I'll hear this disembodied voice go, "Mrs. Bosch, something's happening." That's been really, really fun, and it's hysterical to see who shows up. You never know who's going to show up. And then the last thing was I asked my principal, I send them, because she said in the beginning of this thing, we really need to like mail. So she wanted like a physical thing. I don't know if you can see this. Oh no, I think my virtual background is giving it a problem, but it's a coloring postcard. So it's cheap enough to mail, and yet we could send one to every kid. So it's like the adult coloring, but it's kids stuff. So yeah. So we're working on that. So that's just 3 things we did to get them connected.
That's excellent. Oh, thank you so much, Nancy. Those were great. I would love to hear them screaming, "Wait, it's coming! Here it goes!" All right, anybody else?
I could just say one thing about having our voices heard and, you know, with administration is, and one thing that we found to be very beneficial. I'm sorry, this is Brenna Greer. I'm a elementary school librarian in Marlborough Township, 1 to 5. And I found that collaborating with the other 4 librarians in my district to kind of create our lessons and activities that we're posting and doing like a unified activity has kind of put us on the radar of, you know, with the administration. So one example is we did like the cover copy challenge where students used like things around their house to recreate the covers of like a children's book. And so we invited all of the students in the whole district, or at least in the elementary schools, to participate. And we invited, you know, our administrators to participate. And so we've been doing book battles with another librarian in Monroe that we've collaborated with. And each week we give the students 2 different books from Epic to read and vote for their favorite. So doing it like as a district has, you know, instead of just each of us kind of doing our own thing in our own school, I think has been beneficial, not only, you know, to collaborate, which I know we were talking about earlier, but also to, you know, show what we're doing as librarians and as media specialists, you know, across the district. And all of our work, all of the related arts work, except for obviously gym and phys ed, are optional, you know, for our district, you know, platform or, you know, remote learning. So that, you know, it could be problematic because, you know, some students come to our Google Classroom, some don't. But I feel like that's been one way to kind of let our work be seen and let our students' work be seen.
And I have something to share just with, and thank you for all that you shared, just in terms of what Taisha said with administration and getting them on board. You mentioned something about your Google Forms, and for those administrators who are stuck on data and seeing data, remember that your Google Forms produces pie charts and bar charts that can show your administrators, see, look, this is working, you know, and you can even add that to your, you know, evaluation for the next time, right? But if they need to see visually how this is working, and if word of mouth isn't good enough for them, you know, by all means use your data that's produced from your Google Forms to show them just how well received your projects are, so that they would probably, you'll have more leverage with whatever it is that you're trying to do in the future. So that's what I recommend as well.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Jill?
Okay. Yeah.
It's Beth. Raf. I just was thinking, there's some great stuff going on in the chat, but I was thinking about how at the end of the year last year, I did do an end of the year library report for my principal, which she really loved. And I think that might be important to do this year. I mean, circulation.
Yeah, I felt like we had that in here. Maybe
okay.
not. Okay. I might have taken it out. Go ahead. Yeah.
I didn't go through all the slides. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't have it here. I thought it was something we had begun, but okay. Maybe we'll put that in your brand.
I was just thinking about, you know, the circulation statistics aren't really going to be what matters because we lost all the in-school time. But I think sharing all these ways that we have been reaching out to families and students and doing PD should be shared with our principals. So I think I'm going to start working on that with less than 20 days to go. I think it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Just use picture chart or something like that. Make it really simple, one page, because they don't have a lot of time. But I think it would be important to get in front of your principal and your supervisor.
That's excellent, Beth. And that leads us right to this next one too. How are you branding yourself? How are you sharing your news? So if anybody wants to speak to any of these, I know I'm looking at the time and we really only have about 15 minutes left in this hour. So we can quickly move through these and look at the rest and come back. And if anybody wants to stay on for a little bit longer, we can as well. But I want to be respectful of the hour that we set. So
we, even though the state is not requiring evaluations or summatives, my district is requiring us to go through the whole process as if we were doing it. So I have to have mine done for Friday. And I have changed most of my language to be what I've done since March that is so different from what I did from September to March. So like you're saying, Beth, that you do an end of the year report, I put all that in my summative because we're still having summatives and have to rate ourselves and the whole thing.
That's a great idea too. Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to speak to how you share what you're doing, maybe even outside of your district? Is anybody active on social media? What is the best platform? Who do you make sure sees what you're putting up there? And how do you identify the stakeholders?
I have to say that I'm using Facebook more often. I will use that, especially if there's stuff that I want parents to know. If there's stuff that I want my middle schoolers to know, because I'm K-8, I'll live on Instagram. I don't have people that I interact with regularly on Twitter. That's probably my social media pitfall. I haven't really been there. But if I want stuff that I want other people to see, that's where I'll tag our school board members, the state library, the, NJASL as a whole, and just try to get it out that way. I feel like for us, we've gotten so much, in some ways being able to run a library from your desk, we were trained for this. We knew how to reach out and grab anything and mush it into something else and push it back out the other end. But sharing it and making sure that people see it is hard sometimes. I email my principal a lot. Sometimes it's a little less calm than other times, but I feel like that relationship and working with the teachers is the best thing I can do right now to show that just because I'm not covering somebody's prep doesn't mean I'm not working.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Hello? Oh.
Go ahead. Oh, I send a lot of stuff to my PTO president. She puts it on the Facebook page for the school, for the PTO. That gets to a lot of parents. And we also, my colleague and I send a lot of information to Tap Into, which is the digital newspaper for the area. A lot of stuff for Read Across America. Anything we do big in school, that deals with the library or reading or literacy, we always promote that. And so a lot of parents read that. And I think that really puts us out there that, we're very involved.
I was going to say, I do this social media for my entire district, my entire building, Beth Willoughby. We've sent out press releases through this of what we've done. I've helped make videos. We have weekly spirit days, and all of that goes on the school's Facebook and Twitter feed, which I then tag the mayor. I tag everyone I can in town. So it does get out there a little more.
That's great. That's great. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Where do we go from here? Anybody want to share if they have their ideas yet? What are your plans to stay connected to your school community and your students or your staff through the summer? Or are you just saying, I need a break, which is also fair. So.
Last year, I created a little Google site with all summer reading challenges, things from Scholastic. TD Bank offers $10 for reading 10 books, and all this, all the free little Barnes and Noble gives you a free book if you read 8, and they have a little printout sheet and you can fill it out. And so all of these things, I just bring them together in one little Google site. We also read The World According to Humphrey, which was like the theme book for our school last year. And so I gave them some links to the public library, different Humphrey books that they could read. And I created an Instagram account for our library class pet. He's a real hamster. And I actually still have him. He's still kicking. So we might be able to, work on this a little bit more this year. So he's still alive. I better get some screencastifys of him soon before, hamsters. So.
Yeah. We've had a few here. I think it's a 2-year window.
So that video that the public library will create about how to participate in the public library's virtual summer reading programs, I'll probably add that to last year's site and just help promote that site at the end. Towards probably the last 2 weeks of school, I try to promote that as my lesson. These are the different things you can do over the summer to keep reading. And of course, they have the public library cards, and they'll be able to download books that way. So. I can share that. I'll share the link to the summer reading site, although it's not updated for this year yet.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Okay. So Joyce Valenza has been on this call with us this entire time. Thank you, Joyce. I know this is like your 5th Zoom of the day, so thank you. But I wanted to know if you would speak to this slide that you created and tell us, what we have here.
Jill, could you give me permission to share a screen?
Sure. Yes. Yep. You're good. You can just go ahead now.
Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to take you back to the same slide deck, but I just want to show you some of this. There were some links here that I wanted to make sure I could grab. I just want to share 2 major ideas. One is, and I can't remember, a couple of your folks have already talked about using your Bitmojis to brand yourself and also to create scenes. So one of the things I started thinking about when I started reading about the scenes, and this is a blog post I did earlier this week, is actually using the scenes to create an interactive virtual library. So if you don't have a virtual library, if you have a LibGuides or anything like that, you're all set. But if you don't, this is the moment to make it. I want to say that Caroline's story really spoke profoundly to me, because school districts are making decisions between now and July 1st about budgets. And so whether it has to do with our jobs, our collections, our resources, this is the moment in time to make an impact. So I'm pointing you to this blog post and also saying that I did a prototype, and there are so many different prototypes and there's so many lessons here on how to create a Bitmoji scene. I think it ought to be more than a scene. And I really think there ought to be levels of this that actually create your virtual library, not just for now, but moving into September. You may disagree with me. This is my personal opinion, but I've held this opinion since things became virtual 25 years ago or something. So in any case, these are basically, the way these are created, for those of you who haven't yet done these are created just using a Google slide deck. Actually, in fact, just one Google slide. And so if you take a look at this, this newspaper leads to a Pearl Trees collection of newspapers. The databases, you could link to Jersey Clicks or your own databases. Citing sources, in this case, this goes to MLA, but you could link to whatever generator you had. So you can make a copy of this slide, get rid of my furniture, get rid of my Bitmoji, and use some of these things. If you have a Pinterest account, link to your Pinterest account. If you have an Instagram feed, link to that. So those are some things. But if you don't like that, there are so many examples on the web. This is my daughter's, for example. I'm just going to make it larger. And there's so many library examples, but just very simply, what this really becomes is a hyperdoc. So imagine this one slide. It goes to a link, but it could also go to another slide. And that other slide could be a choice board. It could also be your lessons for grades 1, grades 2, grades 3. So you have a top level index, a second level index, and then that index goes in a bunch of different directions. So this actually could be the basis for a virtual library. And the thing about Google Slides is once you publish them, you can grab the embed code and you can put that embed code in your Destiny catalog on that page or on a Google site, or better yet, in a learning management system or on your the appropriate classroom teachers' websites. So that's idea number one. And idea number two, I know I need to talk fast. We've been working as sort of SL and an NJASL subcommittee, and I've been collecting the ideas that you've been sharing during the session. And what I think is that we talked about this at our last task force meeting. Many of our ideas are falling in the forest. They are wonderful, kid-centered, loving, and adorable, and brilliant. But what if we created a little social media card? And what if we had a hashtag so that these could be collected, we could have a feed, and they could be shared not only with your PTO, which is a pretty fabulous thing, but with the New Jersey Board of Education, with your superintendent. And what if we kept sharing the things using this hashtag? So I started but now the card would accompany a tweet or an Instagram post or go on a Facebook post. In the post itself, you would have a link to something that represented your bedtime stories or your book battles or the daily TV show that I think Nancy was talking about. And that way, at the end of all this, we would have data about what we created. And if we're gonna get this ready before Friday. But what we're gonna do is be able to collect the cards, and also for you, so basically all you would need to do is get rid of this the stuff in the center, put your own stuff in the center, and then share it using the NJ Lib Still Serving. The catchphrase that Unlocking Student Potential was using was, the library is open. And there was a controversy about whether that was clear or unclear to users in the public library sense about the library physically being open. But it occurred to me when I was like lying in bed awake at night, as I always am, that what we're really doing is still serving. ... What are we still serving? And we're still serving every single thing you guys were talking about during this past hour, and we're doing it brilliantly. But what would happen if we could actually really push this out in a big way and model this for the other state organizations? So and I'd love some help with this. I'm working on this with Tracina Beebe and Eva Elliott and Sky, I forgot Sky's last name. But if anybody can do a prettier, thank you, Silverstein. If anybody can do a prettier template than I can, please say you want to join our group, and I'll wave a wand and you'll be on our group. And then I was thinking about the stories. I've been trying to collect all of the free books that have been coming out for the publishers, and including that. So on here also, you'll see the publishers directory who has already given permission for reading, for online reading. So this is just, I think this is basically the SLJ spreadsheet on that. You can see the various publishers. Here, this is a link of COVID books if you want to talk about this, but this is also the New York City's list of free ebooks about COVID-19. So anybody's welcome to just grab that. That's all I think I'm so sorry I've taken so much time.
I just wanted to add really quickly, Joyce, I love your Bitmoji scene and the hyperlinks. I put on slide 13 a link to a whole bunch that are already done that you can just put your own stuff on.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. So I think that whole notion of really having, and Beth's idea about the annual report, even if it's a one-pager, even if it's a short Google slideshow, evidence is going to be critical right now. This is something I'm really passionate about. You're going to stand out from every other person in the building if you have evidence. The solutions you come up with, you don't walk in with problems. Beth has heard me say this 100 times. You walk into a situation with solutions in your pocket. You walk in with the evidence. You don't have somebody ask you the questions about what were you doing during the pandemic. You come in with the evidence of what you've done. So I'm sorry, I'm talking like a mother.
Stop. Never apologize. Okay, I'm gonna go back to just sharing from here.
I think I stopped sharing.
Yes, you did, so thank you. Okay, so, so has anybody, because I don't see it right now, but has anybody put anything in there yet? No, okay. So that's fine. This will remain active. You'll all have access to this. We'll share this out broadly. And please continue to contribute whatever your thoughts are, whatever your best practices are. And also continue to reach out about like what's challenging you right now. I think this has been great. Beth Raff saw a swap meet the idea of it through AASL, and this platform has been working so well for us, and I really appreciate everybody's generosity in their time, in their ideas, and just feeling the need to come together as a community, because I really think we're learning so much from each other. Anybody want to have any other closing thoughts? Yes, Amy.
I know you said that obviously we have access to the slides and people are adding to it. What about the chat? Will we have access to, there were some resources?
Yes, so that will come too, and I will include that. So I've been saving it as we went along.
Great.
And I'll make sure that everybody has access back to this chat. And before we do go, I just want to make sure that everybody has included your email there so that we can make sure everybody gets the PD hour and the links to all the resources here. Okay. Is there any closing thoughts, any closing questions that maybe we missed as the chat went by?
Somebody asked about in the chat about UV book sanitizer.
I do think, and that's another part. So Joyce was saying about all the things that they're developing. That's another part of what NJASL is putting together, just some ideas of what we're going to do when we go back and how we can reopen our libraries. There are a couple of those conversations happening, and we intend to share with you what we learn about that. Yeah, Top Cats is the other organization that I sit on for the best practices, and Tristina's on the advocacy of that, and who else sits on that? Jennifer. So anyhow, we will have some ideas of best practices. I don't know of anybody buying that. I don't know how much it is or even how effective it is. We have a disinfectant atomizer at our school that apparently sprays everything down, and in 4 minutes it's sanitized. I don't know how many times you can do that with your books. And I also laugh because I say that'll get the cover. I don't know about what's happening on the pages.
Jill, Mary Moyer had shared some documents referring to this, and it was recommended that you don't use the UV sanitizer because that it wasn't good for the books, and that you shouldn't use any chemical applications or anything either, that the book should be quarantined for 48 hours, and that was the best plan. She shared something out.
That's Top Cats, I think, Lisa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll put the link, I'll find it and put the link in if we're still here.
Yeah, that's okay, because that will be part of what comes
I'll try
out
to grab
you.
it now.
I have it. I have it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah.
And that sanitizer is about $1,500. So if we're looking at budget cuts, I don't think any district is going to be able to lay out that much money for a sanitizer like that.
And then you know what else Mary had said? Somebody brought up, you know, so we talk about even just hand sanitizers, and then you have to remember that CUSAC does not allow Clorox wipes in schools. So, you know, like there might be a protocol that the CDC recommends that's not actually applicable in schools. So that is something that another part of NJASL is looking to put together by the end of the week. Just what we have so far, the links we have, the different guidelines we need to follow. And then of course you have to follow what your district says as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming at us, and that is one of our goals as your organization, is to really help you have everything in one spot. So yeah, I know, lots of questions.
Is anybody else feeling a lot of anxiety about September?
Yeah. I was going to say it's right now it's on a daily basis, but sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, skipping, like, this is like normal anxiety. How do we get through the next 20 days?
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know what to hope for September. I'm worried that if we're not back, it's going to be very easy to justify that. You know, if you're on a fixed schedule, that's kind of out the window. I feel like I've proven my value every day during quarantine, just to teachers alone. But, you know, the budgets in New Jersey have been blown to smithereens. I think we're going to be lucky to have our garbage picked up. I just, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. And when things have to get cut, you know, I feel like we're always hanging out there as the first thing that says, nice to have, don't have to have, which is.
So Amy, that's an absolute concern, and we are hearing that from other people. I would like you, if you don't mind, that you add that as a discussion point in this slideshow. Like, this is something that a lot of us are thinking about, a lot of us are worried about, and then maybe we can like talk about who has some ideas, or who can even just talk us through it, or this is another, you know, as we get a little bit closer, or we finish out the school year, we want to be proactive looking towards September. What can we bring to our district? Again, like this, what package can we say, here we go, here's what's best practices, here's what we've learned, here's the data to support it.
Well, and I think that's where the evidence that we gather and the advocacy that we can do on the state level is going to help us more than anything, because for most of us, we're one librarian in one building, and sometimes more than one building, and it's a small voice. So being able to amplify that and, you know, just point to all the different things, and as we learn from each other, we'll figure out what are the most effective things to do, and make sure that, you know, we're there where we need to be.
Yeah, so Vanessa had a hand up.
Yeah, I think we should have that conversation sooner than later. Yesterday, my administrators had a conversation, a very unnerving conversation with some of the teachers about suggestions for next year. And this morning, as a matter of fact, me and the other activity teachers at my school, art, gym, music, we got together to start putting our heads together as far as how can we center ourselves and advocate for ourselves for a slot during the schedule for next year. And just like you're saying, how can we make sure that we are heard, our voices are heard as activity teachers? You know, the librarian and the arts can be very quickly cut. So I think that the conversation should be had very sooner than later, because the administrators are already having conversations about next year, and they're planning sessions about next year.
You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry, because I really did misspeak to say, you know, like when we're looking at both of the groups that are working to put these things together, our deadlines are Friday. we really want to get this out to the membership as soon as we possibly can. We all met on Sunday. We all put our tasks ahead of us and are working to gather this to get out to the membership by next week. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We know people are really, the districts are already having those conversations. We know it. Yeah, Tom, yeah?
And I had one positive note is right before this Zoom, I had a Zoom with my principal and the other specialists, and we asked this exact question, like, are we being cut? And she said, no, there's been no plans for cuts. And she said, let me level with you guys. The thinking is that we've got to cut classrooms in half. And they go, she said to us, your jobs may look different next year, but that we need more teachers, not less. So I'm taking that as a piece of positive. So if we can come up with programs and things that are exciting for the kids that the parents are going to love, then I think that's a good way of saving our jobs. But it's going to be interesting. So, yeah. But I think hopefully it's positive, not negative.
Well, we definitely needed that to wrap this up. So thank you.
I hope.
Thanks for that. I don't want to cut anybody off, but I also want to be respectful of your time. I thank you all so much for being here with us. I think this is what we really need, right? We just need to have these voices together, encouraging each other, bringing ideas to the table, and also just to kind of just be that support and that lift that we really need right now. Any parting thoughts or that you want to say out loud or want to put in the chat? Like I said, we're not going to end this.
Sheila, can I interrupt for just a second?
Donna,
interject? Yeah. This is Donna Swift, the professional development coach here. And I just really want to thank everybody for taking your time. I know everyone's seriously busy, but having this forum, I would really like to see us go forward with this and continue it. We have some really, really heavy hitters here today, and I'm just so appreciative. So I encourage you all to continue to speak up, add your ideas, put those into the slides that are available, reach out to individuals. All of our emails should be in the chat. And I just really appreciate you being members of the organization, because there is strength in numbers, and this professional organization tirelessly working for all of us. And I just really thank you guys all for being here. Jill and Caroline for dedicating yourselves to planning this together. It was impeccable. It was wonderful. And so I really just wanted to just put in my thanks to everyone who's here today.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you. Can you stay a couple of minutes after the meeting?